Hey guys, in today's video we are going to do an unsponsored review of the much anticipated Samsung Galaxy Watch 4. And I'm really excited to find out how this watch stacks up against the TicWatch E3 from Mobvoi, which is a kind of a standard Wear OS watch, and whether or not the extra 80 bucks or so that you pay for this over something like this is worth it, given that you do with the Samsung watch get some extra integration options if you happen to be a Samsung phone user, as I am. So let's find out. All right, let's get this thing out of the box real quick. All right, very minimal type packaging. This is just the black 44 millimeter version. The side profile of that watch is actually fairly thin. I think it might be a little bit thinner than the TicWatch. So the top part of this is empty, just this little bit here. All right, so we've got the little magnetic puck that comes with the charge cable. Now I got my kit, it was $279, I think it was, pre-ordered. And when I bought this, I had an option to buy the watch itself for $279, or I could buy the bundle on the pre-order for also $279. So it's kind of a no-brainer. So what I got was this dual Qi charge pad, which is also a Samsung product. So it came with it both. I don't know how long they're going to be doing that. Again, I bought this from Amazon, but I'll be able to put the watch right here and get it charging and be able to charge my phone at the same time. And off we go. Now I'm going to need a solid week to 10 days to put this thing through its paces and really get a good feel for it, so I know how it really does stack up to something like the TicWatch E3. But I've supposedly already done that, at least the future me has, and so let's just jump to future me. And we're back. It's been a little over a week since I was talking to you 2 seconds ago. Hopefully I'm not wearing the same clothes. I forgot to check to see what I was wearing. But anyway, I've spent a great deal of time with both watches, and more specifically the Galaxy Watch 4, and it's kind of not completely what I expected. To be perfectly honest, I was I think most jazzed about the idea of the new Wear OS and how different of an experience that was going to be. And was it life-changing? Not really, no. There are definitely some perks and improvements for sure, both visually and functionally with the new Wear OS. But it is not crazy different from the Wear OS that you get on something like the E3 that is currently shipping today. Now, as you may or may not be aware, the E3 will get the new Wear OS sometime in 2022, maybe the first half, but we got to wait on it. But that said, the experience of using these two watches is different, but not substantially different. And we'll get into those details. Let's look at some of the specs. As I mentioned, the TicWatch is actually normally selling for $200, although I just checked and Mobvoi's actually got a sale on this right now. I assume because the Galaxy Watch is stealing their thunder, but it's currently selling for 180 bucks. So that makes currently the Galaxy Watch 4 44 millimeter version a full $100 more expensive than the E3. So this comes in at $280. As I mentioned at the beginning, I got this cool Qi wireless charging pad that does my phone and the watch, along with the bundle for pre-ordering, because this is not a sponsored video. I did buy all of these with my own money. But apparently now that the watch is shipping and it's no longer a pre-order situation, that particular bundle deal is gone. So I think it's about $320 if you get it bundled with the Qi wireless charging pad. Or it's $280 if you just buy the watch kit by itself. So size-wise, you can see these things are very similar in size. And I've got an aftermarket band on the E3, so the band is a little bit different. But they both use 20 millimeter bands, so even that part is the same. So they're basically both 44 millimeter watches. The Galaxy Watch is maybe 0.4 millimeters wider in diameter. They are both relatively low profile, but one thing that kind of was a significant thing for me is that the thinness of the Galaxy Watch is only 9.8 millimeters wide, or thick, I should say, whereas the E3 is 12.6. So the Galaxy Watch is actually, 2.8 millimeters thinner than the E3. I didn't think that would make much of a difference, but it really did. And when I was testing the E3, I didn't find, and I'll put that video link up here if you haven't seen it, I was pretty happy with the level of comfort of wearing the E3. I didn't really find it to be cumbersome on the wrist, and it was relatively comfortable to wear. Now, I will say that the Galaxy Watch 4 is even more comfortable to wear and even less bulky on the wrist. And surprisingly, it's lighter weight. This is the E3 uses a polycarbonate, sort of plastic polycarbonate design. The Galaxy Watch 4 is aluminum construction, and it's actually lighter. So this is 32 grams on the E3. The Galaxy Watch 4 is only 30 grams. And it is noticeable. I mean, I'm surprised, but it is noticeable. Now, some people have complained, I've seen, that the band that comes with the Galaxy Watch has little kind of stoppers on the inside there, which prevent it from bending all the way down. You see how there's this curvature shape to it. And if you have fairly thin wrists, you'll get little gaps in the bands right where these hinges are, as opposed to, a standard band, which, you can fold all the way down. Now, I think, even though there are people complaining about that, I think the reason for that, actually, I think it's by design, because if you think about it, if you have thinner wrists and the watch band flexes down more dramatically, like the E3 will, there's a greater likelihood that the weight will be distributed on the edges of your wrist, and the bottom sensor part will be lifted off or maybe not maintain as consistent a contact with your skin, which may affect the accuracy of the measurements. At least that's my theory. If you guys have looked into that or maybe have other theories, please feel free to share them in the comments, but I'm pretty sure that's why that is as it is. Now, as far as the processors are concerned, they are a little bit different. The Mavoy E3 watch is using the Qualcomm Wear 4100, Snapdragon 4100, which is their latest chip. And that is actually the reason. It's a very good high-performance chip, very efficient. That's why this is going to get the Wear OS, the newer version of Wear OS next year, because it can handle it. The Galaxy Watch 4 is using Samsung's Exynos W920. And it's, obviously designed specifically for this watch line. Memory-wise, this is kind of a big one. The E3 watch only has kind of a standard 1 gigabyte of RAM and 8 gigabytes of ROM. So storage, you think of that as storage for music files or podcasts or whatever. The Galaxy Watch 4 has upped the ante on that. So you get 1.5 gigs of actual runtime RAM, and you get twice as much storage as the E3. So you get 16 gigabytes of storage on the Galaxy Watch 4. Now on the displays, there's not a huge difference here, but there kind of is. So the E3 is a 1.3 inch display. It is not Super AMOLED. They call it an HD display. So it's 360 by 360 pixels. The Galaxy Watch 4 is a Super AMOLED display, and it's 450 by 450 pixels, and it is a 1.4 inch display. So that little 1/10 of an inch is really all that's different, and you wouldn't think that really makes much of a difference, but it actually does. Like when you have to key in your PIN or your pattern code to unlock the screen if you're using like Google Pay or Samsung Pay, but it makes that a little bit easier. It's a little less constrained as it is on the smaller screen. As I said in the video when I did the E3 review, I didn't really feel like the difference between the HD display and the Super AMOLED was dramatic. And I think I still hold fast to that assessment. But I will say it is noticeable, especially when you put them side by side. And we'll take a little bit of a look at that in a minute as well. GPS, same deal. The Galaxy Watch adds Galileo compatibility on GPS, but the E3 has got the standard, GPS and GLONASS and all that stuff. Now, the E3 does come with Google Pay standard. The Galaxy Watch comes with Samsung Pay standard out of the box, but there's no reason why you can't use Google Pay. You can just download it and set it up on the Galaxy Watch 4 if that would be your preferred payment method over something like Samsung Pay. They both have external speakers. They both have microphones. They're both two-way talk for answering phones. They both got a whole host of sensors. This one will do SpO2 readings, and as well as heart readings and all that sort of stuff, as well as the Galaxy Watch does all of that, plus a number of other things. And so it also adds things like ECG readings and body composition. I don't know how often you're going to use those things. It also does blood pressure, and I did a little bit of testing with that. I mean, I don't know how accurate that is. I've got actually a blood pressure cuff, and I didn't find them. I felt like the blood pressure readings I was getting on the watch were a little more favorable than the ones I was getting off a medical grade blood pressure cuff. So I think I take those additional features with a grain of salt. And if you don't have a Samsung phone, getting some of those other features like blood pressure and body composition and ECG on the Galaxy Watch to work on a non-Galaxy phone or with a non-Galaxy Android phone takes a few hoops to jump through. So it's not quite as easy to get up and running with those things as it would be if you had a Galaxy phone. Battery-wise, this was something that surprised me. This E3 has a 380 milliamp hour battery, and the Galaxy Watch 4 has a 361 milliamp hour battery. Now, I think probably that little 20 or so milliamp hours in size of the battery capacity may explain why the Galaxy Watch 4 is a little bit thinner. And I thought maybe that might be an issue. But as it turned out, in a head-to-head test, the E3 had dropped to 65% capacity from 100%. The Galaxy Watch 4 had only dropped to 83%, which I was a little bit surprised. Now, this is with light to moderate use, leaning more toward probably the light side. I think it's realistic from a battery life standpoint that you could get, if you were using light usage, the E3 is a maximum about 3 days. The Galaxy Watch is about 3.5 days. So, but again, that's pushing it. I think on a more normal use basis, you're going to get about 2 days out of the E3 and maybe 2.5 days out of the Galaxy Watch under sort of typical use. Under heavy use, you're probably going to get a day and a half out of the Galaxy Watch if you don't top it off. And out of the E3, you're going to get maybe typical use. You may get just slightly less than that. So there is, I think, a noticeable battery life difference. But if you've got your Qi charging or your battery connectors handy and you're topping it off, I don't think you're going to notice that difference between the watches all that much. And I will also say that because the Galaxy Watch 4 uses this little magnetic Qi wireless puck, it doesn't have a direct connected contact like cable like the E3 does. Now the E3 cable is magnetic, but it does have little contacts on the back. And the difference in that makes really is in charging speed. So this does not charge as fast. And I've tried it with Quick Charge 3.0, applying that to this. It doesn't seem to make any difference. It took this thing to charge it all the way to 100% from more or less zero, about an hour and 45 minutes through Qi charging. Now the E3 will charge in an hour and 10 minutes. So you can top the E3 off very quickly with a standard magnetic cable that it comes with. And because it does top off a little bit faster, I think the differences in battery life are not probably going to push you strongly in one direction or another just based on that alone. But let's jump into some kind of an overhead view and look at the watches side by side a little more closely. So yeah, so you can see the screens are roughly the same in size. This is just 1/10 of an inch bigger here on the Galaxy Watch, which is the one on the left, obviously, and the E3 is the one on the right. And so things are a little bit different. If I swipe down from the top here, I get a variety of things similar to what I get from the older version. But you can see I get different information here. The battery percentage is showing at the top instead of the bottom. I have actually multiple pages on the new Wear OS of different things, and I can add different icons and settings to this display if I choose to go that route. On the original Wear OS, it's really just one page. And keep in mind, this is Samsung's also One UI built into this overlay on the Wear OS. So the Wear OS experience on the newer version that you get when it is available on the E3 eventually next year will still look different than it does on the Galaxy Watch 4 because we're using the Samsung One UI overlay. But if I go back out to the main watch face, swiping to the left gives me my tiles. It's the same thing you get here on the original version of Wear OS. But just looking at these two displays, I don't think you see a shockingly different appearance in vibrancy. I think there's no question the Super AMOLED display is better than the HD display, but it is not like a deal breaker being kind of a difference. I can go back to the watch face from there. To get to apps on the old Wear OS, I have to press the top button. Over here, I just swipe up from the bottom, and you can see they're listed in rows of 2 on the old version and rows of 3 on the new version. And just like on both versions, you can press and hold icons here, and you can see they get the little wiggle, and you can reorganize the apps to appear in any way that you want. You can do that on the Wear OS app as well. Now, if we were just kind of go back to that, Let's open the Play Store app on both at the same time and see what performance looks like. You can see it's pretty darn close. Now, I will say if I do this test repeatedly, I will get slightly different results from time to time. Sometimes it takes noticeably slower on the E3 than it does on the Galaxy Watch, but sometimes they're almost identical. On the E3 watch, to get to notifications, you swipe from the bottom, and you have email notifications and all that sort of stuff down here. On the new Wear OS, you swipe from left to right, and you get notifications that way. Things are just in a little bit different space. Here I can get to the Google Assistant. I can also get that by doing a long press on the top button, brings me up to the Google Assistant. But let's do a quick comparison. So using Google Assistant versus Bixby. What's the current population of the United States? All right, now let's see what we get on Bixby. When using Bixby, you have to press and hold the button while you talk. So let's try that. What's the current population of the United States?
I can't do that yet, but I'm working on it.
See, so it's just, I mean, there are things that you can do on the Google Assistant that you cannot do on the Bixby Assistant for now. So I really am looking forward to when they roll out the Google Assistant for the Galaxy Watch 4. So for both watches, regardless of the fact that they're ones running the newer Wear OS, we do need two apps. In the case of the E3, we need the Wear OS app here, and we need the Mobvoi app. If we look at the one for the Galaxy Watch 4, instead of Wear OS, you need the Galaxy Wearable app, which works very much the same as the Wear OS app, and it lets you do basic things like organize the apps, set up your tiles, quick panels, watch faces, and all that stuff. But again, you don't really have to get into this app a whole lot. And of course, the Samsung Health is required anytime you're logging your health data. I found that the heart rate seems to be pretty accurate on this and consistent with what I was getting with both my Fitbit Versa 2 and what I was getting on the E3. So I don't think there's a big difference there. The plotting is pretty good. You can see we do get interactive plots here. So as I move around, I get cursors. They give me additional information. And that's typically not the case in the Mobvoi app. You kind of get more of a static plot view on the Mobvoi app. But then you can add things like the ECG and blood pressure monitoring. As I said, I really question whether or not these are super helpful. Maybe for just baseline and doing some trending, but I certainly wouldn't do any sort of, I wouldn't make a doctor's appointment necessarily based on the type of information you're getting from these particular sensors. I think they're interesting, but they're not things you want to rely on. And it does do blood oxygen. I have it disabled right now and didn't collect it recently. But you can add things like what you're eating. So in this case, it's fairly similar to what you would get on the Fitbit app. So the apps, I think, are fairly comparable. The Samsung one is slightly more polished, but I don't think the Mobvoi app is any slouch in this area. All right, so let's talk about some of the pros and cons, right? So the Galaxy Watch 4 Pros, it's got Galaxy Phone integration. So if you have a Galaxy phone, you get things where like you can turn on device power sharing, I think it's called, where you can just lay the watch on the back of your phone, and once you've activated that, and it'll start charging the watch. So battery life is decent on the Galaxy Watch 4. Performance, I think, is top notch, as you saw. But, the E3 is no slouch in the performance category as well. The differences are not dramatic. Maybe a slight edge to the Galaxy Watch 4. Now, as you saw, I think the screen is more vibrant, and it is noticeable, especially side to side. If you're not putting them side to side, I think you probably would be happy with the screen that's on the E3 if you're more budget-minded. But a big one, and this is a big one for me, it's lighter weight and a slimmer profile. I really did enjoy the Galaxy Watch 4 for those specific reasons as well. It's just a more pleasant wearable experience. Not to say that the E3 was unpleasant, but when comparing the two directly side by side, I really did find the Galaxy Watch 4 to be a more comfortable watch as a daily wear. Cons, it does cost $100 more than the E3 right now. So between $80 and $100 more, depending on whether you get the sale price of the E3 or the regular price. The other thing is, as many people have commented, I'm sure there's probably 10,000 videos on the Galaxy Watch 4 up by now, but it does not currently come with Google Assistant, and it is standard on the E3. Hopefully, as I'm told, they are planning to add the Google Assistant to the Galaxy Watch 4 at some point in the not too distant future, but we shall see. Nobody's given a delivery date on that yet. Now, as far as the E3 from Mobvoi, it is budget priced. It's only $180. and an overall satisfactory experience of like the things you're likely to use every day. I feel like it's 90% of the way there to where the Galaxy Watch 4 is. So it's really not a bad choice if you're more budget conscious and you don't want to spend the extra $100, or if you don't have a Galaxy Watch or a Galaxy phone, and then you can't take advantage of some of the other little tricks that that level of integration gives you. As I said before, battery life is reasonable on the E3. It will get the new Wear OS next year sometime, but we've got to wait for it. The performance is almost matching the Galaxy Watch 4. The difference is fairly slight. And it has the Google Assistant on it right now. It does feel a bit more bulky in comparison on the wrist than the Galaxy Watch 4, but it wasn't a huge deal. If you've got a Galaxy phone, I think, and you're not gonna feel too painful about spending the extra 180 to $100 for the Galaxy Watch 4, I think it kind of is a no-brainer. If you're more budget conscious and you just don't want to spend the extra money, or you don't have a Samsung Galaxy phone, I think the E3 is still a great choice for the watch. I am going to be using the Galaxy Watch 4 as my daily wear going forward, so I might try to find a good home for this E3, because it is a very good watch, and somebody will get some use out of it if I can find the right home for it. Anyway, hope you found all this information useful in some way. If you did, please consider giving us a thumbs up. It really does help. And if you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing and all that nonsense. I will not waste any more of your time. Thanks for joining me for this video, and until I see you in the next one, have fun out there.